Go to the cloud. Okay, that should be fine. And I think we should be ready to go. Yeah. Let's start invoking the Guru Parampara. Om Tadvarampayaya Vidmahe Jnanalingeshwaraya Dhimahi Tanno Guruः Prachodayate Om. Om Yoga Maharishi Dr. Swami Geetananda Giri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Today we will start dwelling on the niyamas, and when we talk about the yama niyama, we can understand them as the don'ts and the do's, do nots and the do's. That is one way to understand them, and this is well brought out in a song I worked up for the young children at Yoga Anjali when we were working on all of this type of stuff. And what I did at that time was give them it in a form that could be understood. And when you work with children, you want to give them in the best, most easily digestible form. And I think, well, that's true when you teach anybody. Try to give things in as easily digestible form as possible so that the absorption, the assimilation will be facilitated. I think I like Einstein's statement that if you cannot explain it to a small kid, you don't know it. And I think it's a good way to judge whether we know a topic or not. Can we help people who are young children? If you can help young children understand a concept, you are really going to know that concept very well. Because you really have to see, how do I get this essence down into its components that are easily digestible? The whole food that we eat has to be broken down. The carbohydrates have to be broken down into monosaccharides like glucose and fructose for us to digest them. The fat has to become fatty acids for us to digest. Proteins have to become amino acids for us to digest them. Similarly with teachings, you have to be able to bring them down to a form that people can digest them, but don't water them down so much that the teachings run out the door. It is important that the essence of the teachings is kept alive. So when you work with children, and my father often said, be childlike, not childish, but childlike. Have that exuberance that children have. Have the interest, the enthusiasm that children have. As we become older, we sort of become a dreary, nervous wreck who doesn't care about anything and stops learning. And I don't think that's a good way to become old. I think we should age like wine and age better with, become better with age. We shouldn't go the other way. Kalavati is out in a very windy Cardiff today. I can see the breeze really moving around you. Huh? And nice to be able to see you, and Mina's having her cup of coffee there. Huh? Or is it tea? Anyway, nice to see all of you. So coming back, when I was working with the children, I came upon this methodology. And the methodology was, we put it in very, very simple forms. And I'm screen sharing, so hope you can see a screen now. And if you were to break it down, this is the last page of 12 in the Living the Yama Niyama handouts. You will see that I tried to break it down, that all the 5 yama help us to consciously curtail our personality, while the niyama enable us to respond in a more humane manner. So the contrast that we are giving here is the yama to curtail the subhuman reactivity and the niyama to enhance the humane response. Responsibility. Responsibility is the ability to respond. And that is what you want to develop. That how do you respond in a humane manner? I think this is a very important teaching for the modern times, because we have forgotten how to respond. We are totally stuck in a reactionary cycle, and it's becoming worse in its own way. So here, a simple way to give it to children. What is ahimsa? No, I won't be violent. This is a very simplified way that you can take the message to them. Satya, no, I won't tell lies. Asteya, no, I won't steal. Brahmacharya, no, I won't waste my energy. And aparigraha, no, I won't be greedy. So here what you are doing is, whenever these subhuman tendencies, these are the samskaras and vasanas that are of a very primitive nature, whenever you witness them surfacing from beneath the floor, what you do is you say, no, get down. I believe there's a story of the devil, Satan, approaching Christ, who said, go behind me, or something like that. And this is what you are doing here. You are saying, no, I don't want you. And this is part of the Pratipaksha Bhavanam, which we have talked about. To be able to find them just as they are surfacing. Don't let them, once they overpower you, you are like stuck in the grip of a huge anaconda. Okay, just keep that visual metaphor. A huge anaconda, a huge python has you in its grip. Well, that's what happens, and then escaping is very tough. But as soon as you see it, you deal with it. As soon as you witness it. This is why the importance of mindful witnessing, which is what the Sakshi Bhava is all about. Mindful witnessing every moment of your life. Can you mindfully witness every moment of your life without reacting? Because the moment you react, you are stuck in the subhuman spiral. When you can witness mindfully without reacting, you have created a space between that and you. You have created a space in which consciousness can enter. So you need a space between stimulus and response. There is a space. It is in that space that we have the opportunity to make a choice. That is where the Pratipaksha Bhavanam comes in. And the more mindful you become, the bigger that space becomes. The less mindful you are, the lesser that space is. So most people, because they are living mindless lives, there is no space there. So they are just a bundle of stimulus and response. People have become bundles of stimulus response because the lack of mindfulness prevents a gap from manifesting, and so they think they have no choice. She made me angry. He made me angry. Okay, fine. They made you angry, but you know, if you had been mindful of it, you would have found that gap in which you could have responded without getting angry. No, I had no choice. That is a common excuse. I had no choice but to punch him in the nose. No, you had a choice actually. But because mindfulness wasn't there, you didn't even know there was a space, let alone know how to use it. This is why Swadhyaya, the internal GPS, is so vital for a spiritual life. Because without Swadhyaya, you don't know there is a gap. Because you haven't been even looking at it. And this is why for the children, I created a song. This goes very nicely in Tamil, but I've also given an English translation, which in translation you do lose a lot, but still I often try. I will not be violent. I will not speak untruth. So this, if I were to put it in the Tamil song, it is Seiya maten, himsayai seiya maten. So it sort of has more of a poetic repetition of this word saying, I will not be. I will not be, I will not be, I will not be violent, I will not be. That is how that sort of the tone of the song comes. In English, I just put it as, I will not be violent, I will not speak untruth. So it should actually be something like, I will not be, I will not be. I will not be violent, I will not be. I will not speak untruth, I will not speak untruth. Untruth, I will not speak. This is sort of the tone of how I have given it to the young kids. So you can imagine hundreds of kids singing that with me. Seiya maten, seiya maten. I will not do, I will not do. Violence, I will not do. Solla maten, poi solla maten. I will not tell, I will not tell. Untruth, I will not tell. This is actually the type of teaching you have to get into the young children. And it becomes part of them that, yes, I have a choice not to be violent. I have a choice not to speak the untruth. It is a very important empowerment of the individual. And then, I will not steal nor waste my energies. And then we say, having understood that greed leads to destruction, I will not be so. Having understood that greed leads to destruction, I will not be so. When I live the yamas, where is fear anymore? Fear not, I fear not. Because fear comes from the primitive subhuman tendencies. When you start to live the yama, you are becoming mindful of the subhuman tendencies, and so they do not dictate your life anymore. You have taken charge of your life once again. And that is why we say, Achamillai, achamillai, acham enbadillaye. Acham means fear. Illai means no. Acham is fear and illai means no. So, achamillai, acham enbadillaye. Yamattai vaazhum podu. When I live the yama, yamattai vaazhum podu, acham enbadillaye. When I live the yamas, there is no fear anymore. The yama is not being lived because someone has told you to do so. Or if you don't do it, this and that. It is a choice that you don't want to be locked in the subhuman tendencies where fear predominates. The predominance of fear, abhinivesha klesha, is the root of so much of our life. So much of our life is based on abhinivesha klesha. Get into the market before anybody gets there. Get out into the market before anybody gets out there. Catch them before anybody catches them. And put up the biggest banners so that everybody flocks to you. And get your advertisement in the hottest yoga ad website before anybody gets there. What is driving all of that? Abhinivesha klesha, survival instinct. No, I'm not telling you not to advertise, okay? I'm not telling you not to go out there and let people know that you exist. But you don't have to do it in this Abhinivesha-driven way. It is horrendous when you see the way that Abhinivesha has even taken over the yoga world. And that is why we need to understand subhuman is not human, okay? It is subhuman. And if you're born human, it means that the universe felt you were ready to be human. If the universe thinks you're ready to be human, well, you better live up to it. Otherwise, you would have been born as a cockroach, as a rodent, as a mosquito. Why were we born human? Because the universe felt we are now at a moment where we can be taught how to live as a human being. We are in that teachable moment, which is called the human incarnation. Anyway, if I keep on this, I'll never get onto the niyamas today. So let's go to the next page, lesson 7. And you can always read all of this stuff that I've given you. But I just like to stress on certain points, or rather emphasize certain points. The yama is a necessary step in our evolution from a subhuman to the human and humane state of being. It may be understood as the commencement of such a journey that is then taken forward by the niyama and other limbs of yoga. They're all part of like a relay race, One runs the race and hands the baton on to the next runner who continues. It's something like that. And if at all you wish to call yoga an exercise, which is not true at all, you may term it as an exercise to exercise. I will just make this a bit bigger because I see some of you squinting at the screen. I know what that feels like. Once you get into your 40s, that's a major issue we all deal with. So if you wish to call yoga an exercise, which is not true at all, you may term it as an exercise to exercise the subhuman tendencies. This is what Ammaji has so beautifully taught us. Ammaji says, yoga as an exercise to exercise the subhuman tendencies and then to develop and strengthen the human and divine qualities. I think this is a very beautiful way to understand what yoga is about. And it's quite a task. What do we actually exercise here? We try to remove and get rid of the negative tendencies, the vasanas and samskaras, the instinctive reactions that are remnants of our evolutionary past as we evolve through different stages of life and its various forms. These tendencies, like abhinivesha, the desire to survive at any cost, they were necessary at that stage of evolution. But once we have taken the human incarnation, they are just heavy baggage, mere garbage that needs to be discarded. The latent, dormant tendencies in our reptilian brain, remember the brainstem and the spinal cord, can be cleaned out when we perform techniques like the Bhujangasana. You put yourself in the cobra posture. You put yourself into Sarpasana, the serpent posture. The Sarpa Kriya, the serpent movement. Bhujangini Kriya, the cobra hissing. I did this in one of my morning sessions where we go down and then we come up with a... You hiss out through your teeth. And what you're doing is you're giving off, you're letting off all of these. Or the Makarasana, which is the crocodile posture, lying down like a crocodile in the hot sun. These help us to get rid of these snake-like, crocodile-like tendencies hiding deep within our psyche. This is an additional dynamic process that facilitates the reduction of the subhuman tendencies. Of course, when we live the niyama and the yama, we are improving human qualities. This is where it is important that the yoga practices were not just made to make one muscle bigger or one muscle smaller, or, all of that is a side benefit of yoga. Healthy musculature, healthy digestion, healthy cardiovascular function, these are side benefits of the yoga practices. These yoga practices were primarily to help us culture ourselves. That is why when we describe asanas, we often say you have the asanas that are cultural asanas. And people say, what do you mean by cultural asana? Cultural means you are culturing yourself. You are helping yourself grow into the best version of yourself. We know concepts like, horticulture, agriculture, vermiculture, depending on whether you are working with worms or whether you are working with plants or whether you are working with, the earth. Agriculture, horticulture, vermiculture, sericulture, all these type of terms that are there. This is human culture. You are culturing the human aspects of yourself when you put yourself into the asanas. So the asanas were not just meant as a physical exercise. We have a major issue with the physical exercise part. With regard to the practice Sarpa Kriya, you lie down on your face with your hands in front. So your legs are stretched back, your hands are stretched in front. And then you start to rock with the movement so that your legs go up and then your hands go up and your legs go up and your hands go up and you become a natural seesaw. Muggs had asked, what is Sarpa Kriya? There are some videos on YouTube of Dayanidhi doing that. It's one of the practices the kids love a lot. And it's excellent for the whole abdominal region because you have this. Sarpa Kriya is where you're having this, it's like a boat-like movement, but on the abdomen. Now, if you have any abdominal issues, please don't do it. But otherwise, it's an excellent practice for the whole abdominal area. But also more than that, Salpakriya as getting rid of those tendencies. So before I go any further, let us just think about the concept of the 5 niyamas. Saucha, Santosha, Tapa, Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana. Now, as we go on, this Tapa, Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana is going to metamorph into something called Kriya Yoga. So this is where the niyamas, along with being niyamas, also start to become another very important contribution of Maharishi Patanjali, which is the Kriya Yoga concept, which deals with the kleshas. So you cannot talk about Tapas, Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana, which are part of the niyamas, without talking about the kleshas and talking about Kriya Yoga's role there. And this is why there are dimensions within dimensions. And whenever people sort of try to skip past the Yama Niyama, they are skipping past a huge amount of the Yoga Darshana if they are not careful. Coming back, Saucha. What is Saucha? It is defined as cleanliness. Now, I like to say cleanliness, I like to use the word these days, purity. Because cleanliness often is taken to be an external attribute. So cleanliness as an external attribute, whereas Saucha actually implies internal cleanliness, which is purity. So cleanliness of the self externally and internally and the surroundings. And in India, we often repeat the statement, cleanliness is next to godliness. This is a very beautiful statement. And this must be at all levels of existence, physical cleanliness, emotional, mental, and spiritual, which is where it is good to start using the word purity, because then we understand the internal aspects a bit more. And this should manifest in both intrapersonal, our own relationship, as well as interpersonal, our activities with others. Are you clean and pure in the way you relate to other people? That is also part of Saucha. Not just did you have a bath in the morning and brush your teeth. Having a bath, brushing your teeth, going to the toilet, that is also part of Saucha at one level. But then the more important one, are your relationships based on a purity of heart, or are they based on greed, which then takes you back to the Yama Aparigraha, where then you need to work on not being greedy in your relationship. This is where this link between the Yama Niyamas are so strong, because our relationships are often not based on purity. I often like to say that if you meet somebody new, if you go to a new place and the first thought you have is, what can I get? You better start working on the Yama Niyama a lot. Because the yogic response at that point is, what can I give? When you meet somebody and inside you the question comes, what can I give them? What can I share? When you go to a new place and your first question is, what can I share? Well, you are definitely, the Yama Niyama have come alive in you, and the yoga spirit is alive in you. And this is why we need to shift. It is a shift of consciousness. A shift of consciousness from getting consciousness to giving consciousness. The getting paradigm to the giving paradigm. The grabbing paradigm to the sharing paradigm. The me only paradigm to the us paradigm. The I paradigm to the we paradigm. These type of shifts have to be there. And it is so often said, when illness, the I in illness is replaced with we, even illness becomes wellness when the I is replaced by we. When you start thinking as we rather than I, there's a huge transformation of consciousness that moves you, propels you towards humanity in its purest form. When I think of a yogi, if somebody says, who is a yogi to you, Ananda, I would say a noble human being. A noble human being to me is a yogi. What do you mean by a noble human being? Somebody who manifests the yama niyama in their life. Someone who has become the yama niyama. Somebody who's become the spirit of yoga, who can share without limitation. Who can be without trying to act and be something else. You know, we often talk about personality development. And there are a lot of courses we always run. Every yoga institute loves to run it. Yoga for personality development. This is a common thing you find in yoga circles. Yoga for personality development. And many years ago, we were talking of this, and Ammaji said, it should be yoga for impersonality development, not personality development. It is impersonality development that you are going towards. Because the persona is basically a mask. And so the more you develop the personality, it is just you're making a better mask. You have to come out of the mask. You have to be yourself. That is why impersonality development is actually what yoga is about. Though externally we'll say, yes, the physical personality, the emotional personality, the spiritual personality will be enhanced. Yes, the person will become a better personality at that point, but the goal is not to be the mask. The goal is to just be, which is where impersonality becomes such a beautiful word. The second of the niyama is santosha. Santosha is a quality of contentment. It is an internal satiety. The Bhagavad Gita uses a word for this called tripti. Tripti means satisfaction. Tripti is a very beautiful word. This word here, I'll highlight it. Tripti means satisfaction. It is the capacity to be satisfied, which means contentment, which means satiety. And there's a beautiful combination word in the Bhagavad Gita called Nitya Tripta. Yeah, it's here. This word Nitya Tripta, which means someone who is constantly in a state of satisfaction. A person who is eternally contented. Nitya Tripta. I think this is a very beautiful quality. Very beautiful quality of being human. Because discontent is part of the lower nature. Contentment comes from a higher nature, higher place. Now, when I was doing my physiological studies, and again, everything I learned in medicine was looked at through the yogic prism for me. And we started studying the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus in the center of your brain is a key part of your nervous system that sort of takes care of everything that's happening in you. Everything from regulation of body temperature, to your sleep cycle, to your autonomic function, to your endocrines, to your immune system. You name it, and most probably the hypothalamus plays a role. In the hypothalamus, there is a central region. In medicine, we call it the median, M-E-D-I-A-N. You know median, like you have a median in the middle of the road. The median and then medial. Median, medial, which means towards the middle. The word median and medial in anatomy means towards the middle. Lateral means to go away from the middle. This is the way in anatomy and physiology we use the term. Lateral as the side, but it means to go away from the middle. So to go away from the middle is lateral. To go towards the middle is medial. Medial and lateral. That is actually the way we use the term anatomically physiology. Now your hypothalamus has a medial part of the hypothalamus, which is towards the midline, and a lateral hypothalamus, which is towards the outside. So if you consider the lateral hypothalamus as going towards the extremes and the medial hypothalamus as coming towards the path of moderation, the sense of satiety, respect of food especially, the sense of satiety is governed by the medial hypothalamus. So the central part of the hypothalamus, the part of the hypothalamus closer to the center, is where you have satiety and you say, I've had enough to eat. The lateral hypothalamus, which is away from it, is actually where you have the appetite center and you feel hungry. And the moment I learned this, I was like, this is just marvelous that the philosophy and the physiology have come together. When you are balanced in the middle path, it is a path of moderation, satiety, and self-contentment. Whereas when you move towards the extremes, it's never going to be enough. You always want more. And that is why the raga, dvesha, the two kleshas that pull you away, both are pulling you away from your central balance, and they are always going to want more, 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 more. Whereas as you come towards the path of moderation, your needs become less and less. One has to be very careful about this path of moderation. This path of moderation is very essential if one is to have this nitya tripta. Now, many people often ask a question. They say, if I become impersonal, do I lose my individuality? Because people think that personality is the individuality. Personality is only something that is expressed externally. It is actually not what you are. And what we mean by the word impersonality is to start to become the true you. It is not a becoming impersonal in the sense of you don't care about others. People, English is a funny language. So you say, oh, he was very impersonal, meaning he was a bit rude and all. You don't mean impersonality development that you start to become the rude yogi. I think we have to be a bit careful there. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, there is a concept, yoga ruda, R-O-O-D-A or D-H-A. And a yoga ruda is one who has attained this stage of yoga. The person who has attained that stage of yoga is called yoga ruda. One of the beautiful verses in the Bhagavad Gita. And yatha hi nendriyarteshu na karmasu anushajyate sarva sankalpa samniyasi yoga ruda tada uchyate. It's a very beautiful verse. Yatha hi nendriyarteshu na karmasu anushajyate. You are no longer locked in the control of the senses or what the action reaction is. You are not caught in that anymore. Yatha hi na indriya nendriyarteshu na karmasu anushajyate sarva sankalpa samniyasi. You have given up all the desires. There's no desire left in you. You are not attached to anything. And in that moment, yoga ruda tada uchyate. You become that yogi who is of the highest nature. And when I used to look at that word yoga ruda, I said this, we have to be careful it doesn't become the rude yogi. The rude yogi is the yoga ruda. R-U-D-E-R-O-O-D-A. Be careful of rude yogis and nude yogis. That's the message there. Anyway. Okay. Coming back to something more higher than nude yogis. In fact, I always had an issue about this nude yoga stuff. And then I don't know who it was who once sent me a beautiful, most artistically made nude yoga segment. And the people had done it so artistically, you forgot they didn't have clothes on. I tell you seriously, that was one day I developed new respect for nude yoga. But most of the time it is more voyeuristic. But I really tell you that one video changed my whole perspective because someone really had looked at it artistically, aesthetically, and you would not even know they were nude. It was an amazing experience. So you always learn a lot when you're open to learning. So nitya tripta, what is this quality of santosha? It is contentment which is not of a passive tamasika nature, but it is an active contentment where every moment you are doing your best And at the same time, every moment, whatever comes back, you're accepting with grace. Every moment, you are constantly enhancing your efficiency, but every moment, whatever comes back, you are self-satisfied with whatever comes back. You are not hankering for more. You are growing without bothering about what is coming back. And as you grow, more comes back. It's very funny how this happens, because you are not driven by wanting more, but you start to get more even though you don't want it. It is one of those siddhis that starts to manifest as one grows in the yama niyama. So santosha is a state of contentment where you can be yourself, and that is the point where you will be the most efficient, competent version of yourself, rather than the one which is not having contentment. The discontented one is going to have high level of emotional volatility, and high level of emotional volatility will shut down your intellect, and you will become a much lesser version of yourself, which is something that yoga has understood. That as long as the desire for the fruit is there, your action is going to be tinged with the desire that will stimulate the emotions, and you will not be in a state of balance to be the best you. And this is something again and again I have found in my own life. Whenever I have done anything with a desire that, okay, if I do this, I'm going to get that. It may be monetary, it may be, certificates, it may be degrees, it may be appreciation. Whenever I have done it saying that, oh, I'm going to do a good job because the better I do, the more I get, I've actually made more messes in my life at such times than the times where I have said, whatever comes, let it come. Let me do the best I can do. And in that, actually, I have ended up doing better and received more. And life really teaches you a lot when you do this. Now, today's been a day that I'm struggling with a little bit of this, because after putting out your best, when the best doesn't come back, you sometimes ask yourself the question, why? And then you start to realize, well, karma is multidimensional. And I always tell this to others, so I better tell it to myself today. Karma is multidimensional. So you put out your best in one direction. Maybe it didn't come back in that direction, but it's coming back in other directions if you can just look around a bit. And I think this is a lesson that I need to have today, because I've actually questioned the universe a bit today. It's been one of my days where I've been questioning the universe that, do you have any sense of justice? Do you have any sense of appropriate giving back to people who have done their best? And it's one of those days for me, a tough day. But then in those tough days, you ask the question and then you get the answer. You are only looking in one direction. Blessings are coming in from other directions. And I think that's when you learn that just by putting that effort, you have grown. And the growth you have had as a result of putting your action is itself a reward, not what you get because of it. If you ask me, I think santosha to me is a very noble, humane quality. Because contentment, if you look at Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you will see we have all these needs for food, for shelter, for mate, and for other things. And we are always searching for something. We want something, we want something, we want something, and it's driving us. And when we are satisfied with the lower needs, then you can move into the higher. When your lower needs you feel are not satisfied, you cannot actually move into the higher. So as long as discontent is there, actual growth is being hampered. Now, discontent is fine at the animal level. You are hungry, you go searching for food. Yes, it makes absolute sense. You need a mate, you go search for a mate. It makes sense at the animal level. At the human level, you realize you have a choice that today I am not going to eat. You have a choice. That is the difference between starvation and fasting. In starvation, you are worried, am I going to get the next meal? And the fact that, will I get the next meal? Will I get a next meal? Will I get a next meal? That is actually driving the catabolic process of your body, and you go into ketosis. Starvation can lead to ketosis. But when you're fasting, that same ketosis doesn't occur at the same rate. The reason the ketosis doesn't occur when you're fasting is you are not worried about the next meal because you have made a decision, I am not eating. There's a difference, say somebody has not had breakfast and they don't know, are they going to get lunch? And what if they don't get lunch and not dinner also today? And what if not lunch and dinner and not breakfast tomorrow also? If that is running in your head, the sympathetic breakdown metabolism, which is catabolism, is going to have all the ketones coming out to try and sustain your life. Ketosis is an attempt by your body to actually give you energy. That is actually what's happening. Now, if you're fasting and you say, I know I'm not going to eat for 3 days. I am not going to eat for 3 days. I'll just have some water. And if at times I need, I'll have, a little bit of vegetable broth as, a mineral supplement, a little electrol if I want now and then, but I'm not going to eat for 3 days. You have made a decision from the higher cortex. You have made a decision and you have told the hypothalamus, do not get worried about it. I know that at the end of 3 days, I'm going to have something to eat. I'll have a nice meal, but I am doing this as a tapa, as a penance, as a cleansing, as an austerity, as a self purification method. And you know what? That ketosis doesn't set in at the same rate. It will set in much later as compared to starvation, where you miss 2 meals and you're already half your way into ketosis. So the ketosis response is part of it is the sympathetic stress response. Whereas in fasting, it's not happening. And that is why contentment is where you are not having something, but you are not worried about not having it because you say, I don't need it. It is a very, very interesting one. It is a very, very interesting point to keep in mind, because when you are contented, your sympathetic adrenaline rush is not going to be there. Because it says, okay, this person, they are at ease with it, so why am I getting upset? Your sympathetic nervous system doesn't kick in when you are contented. But when you are discontent, your sympathetic kicks in saying, oh my God, this person is discontent, I need to help them. So by developing a sense of santosha, we are actually developing a higher control over even our autonomic function, over the hypothalamus itself, and the hypothalamus controls the rest of your body and physiological systems, which is why santosha to me is a very beautiful quality. Because you are saying, this is actually the basis of the Buddhist principle of bhiksha. Bhiksha is a very beautiful concept which traditions had, and the Buddhist principle has it very strongly. It's part of many traditional cultures where the monk would go to different households. Whatever was given was accepted, and that would be eaten completely as an offering. The person making the offering was giving it as an offering to the monk. The monk getting it, received it with gratitude, blessed the person, blessed the food, and whatever was given was taken. The person was not told, oh, you only gave me this much, give me more. That was not part of the principle of bhiksha. The principle of bhiksha was developing a sense of contentment with whatever you are given. It's a very beautiful concept. Bhavati bhikshan dehi. The word bhavati bhikshan dehi is give that bhiksha and accept it with contentment. Contentment is again a place where gratitude can come. Gratitude and contentment, they can go together. Because if you are discontent, how can you have gratitude? When you are discontent, a discontented mind cannot feel gratitude. Gratitude can only be felt by a contented mind. When you realize you have been given something, when you value what you have been given, automatically gratitude comes. And from gratitude, a sense of service, sharing, and seva comes. Seva comes out of gratitude, which comes out of santosha. And this is why the concept in Indian tradition was of the society serving and sustaining the monks through what was called bhiksha. Tapa is the third of the niyamas. Tapa is defined as austerity or penance. But for me, it is discipline. The discipline that comes from within, where you will do what it takes even if it is difficult. Doing what it takes even when it's difficult is tapa. They say when, the tough times come, the tough get going. It is something like that. It is the discipline that says, I am going to do it, come what may. The capacity to focus, the capacity to keep moving even when everything is going against you. I think it is a very, very beautiful concept of tapa. Tapa is often also equated with heat. Tapa, which is heat. And it is also the fire that purifies. It is the fire that burns. And in fact, tapa purifies us. That is why penance and austerity was part of all religions and all spiritual traditions. Because the concept was you were purifying yourself by burning away everything that needed to be burnt away. You were burning away the non-essential, leaving behind only the essential. And I think this is one of the places where tapa comes in, because we start to realize that it is where you can get off your tamasika lethargy. And you say, I'm going to do it because it's good for me, even if it is tough. The choice that Lord Yamaraja gives Nachiketa when he says, there is a path which is the pleasurable path, the easy path, the Preya Marga, P-R-E-Y-A, Preya, like in pray, Preya Marga, P-R-E-Y-A. And there is the Shreya, S-H-R-E-Y-A. Shreya Marga is the noble path. He says there are two paths and everybody chooses the pleasant path. But the path to be walked is the noble path, the Shreya Marga. This is in the Katha Upanishad. Katha Upanishad, which is a very small Upanishad where the god of death, Yama, gives this teachings to the young boy Nachiketa. It's a very beautiful concept there. That Shreya Marga is not going to be easy. It's not going to be the easy path for sure. And that is where tapa comes in as keeping yourself on the path. That discipline to keep on the path. Keeping our word, being on time, not giving up when the going gets tough. The ability to be steadfast under all circumstances. These are manifestations of tapa. And I always love Rudyard Kipling and his poem, If. Because for me, that poem by Rudyard Kipling is a good example of tapa. And he says, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming out you. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run. Yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you will be a man, my son. This poem by Rudyard Kipling, he spent most of his life in India, and that is why the Jungle Book and there was another story called Kim was the other one. Jungle Book we all hear about, but Kim was another one from his life in India when the British were in India. Very, very important to remember this, because see, it is very easy to be nice when things are nice. It is very easy to be very yogic when, everybody around you is meditating. But when everybody around you is the opposite of meditation, when everybody around you is challenging your beliefs, when everybody around you is making you doubt your own path, that is the path when tapa comes in. And if tapa is kept in your mind at that time, then you will actually manifest what you need to manifest. That is why when we come to Kriya Yoga, we talk about the concept of tapaswadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana. And yes, papa is also sin. P-A-P-A. Papa is also sin. That is why when I'm in Italy and they talk of the Pope as, the Papa, I'm a little amused at that because in Sanskrit, see, when you know language, different languages and you know words in them, it's quite funny actually, because words in one language can mean such ridiculous things in other languages that you actually end up with a good laugh if you have a sense of humor. If not, you can easily get offended. But the humor and getting offended, well, it's a thin line often. And yes, Mark, it's wonderful. Day 16 of a water fast. Day 10. Okay, that's wonderful. You're not going to be going into ketosis. I can guarantee you that. Because what is there is you are making a choice. You are choosing how you want to live. You are choosing what you want to do. The higher consciousness is guiding the lower body. The Adi is governing the Vyadi, not the body, the Adi. And this is where we start to actually realize that we can go through these difficult times. And if you look at this sequence, you have contentment. From contentment, you make the effort because you are not discontent. So the effort you are making is not springing from discontent, but from a state of contentment. So imagine effort that is coming from a contented person, that is going to be of a high intensity as opposed to the effort of a discontented person, discontented, emotionally volatile person who's going to be shooting the gun in all directions except straight. That's actually what happens. Because the person is so agitated, the efforts are all going to be dissipated. And you find a lot of people who do a lot of work and at the end of the day, nothing has happened. And you wonder what they have done the whole day because you have seen them working. And then you realize it was scattered effort. Scattered effort in multiple directions has not actually done anything. If you want to drill a hole in the wall, better make sure your drill is in the same place all the time. Otherwise, you'll have a wall filled with small holes, but never get the depth you want. This is why tapa has to come from the contented state of santosha. Along with tapa, we have swadhyaya, the spiritual GPS, the yogic selfie. It is a necessary aspect of spiritual growth. It is a constant internal feedback mechanism that lets us know where we are going and keeps checking up on each moment and the movement of our existence. It is a spiritual GPS system that lets us know where we are at any moment, where we need to go, and how to get there. It is constantly helping us. And that is why when we go in, the scriptures help us a lot. And this is why Swadhyaya is often translated as scriptural study. But scriptural study, when it is applied to your own self, not when you just read the book. Many people go, there are institutions where they have 1 hour of Swadhyaya and everybody goes to the library and reads a book. Now it's wonderful. People have read the book, but have they applied the knowledge of the book in their lives? No. So if you don't apply the lessons learned from the book in your life, it is not Swadhyaya. It is, book reading. And book reading is good, but it's not Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya is when everything in your life becomes a lesson for you to help you on your own path of evolution. Everything is a lesson. You read a book, it becomes a lesson. You watch a movie, it becomes a lesson. You go on a trip, it's a lesson. COVID-19 comes along, it is a lesson. Your flight is cancelled, it's a lesson. The flight leaves without you, it's a lesson. You're on the flight and upgraded to first class, it's a lesson. Doesn't matter what it is. Huh? She says yes, it's a lesson. She says no, it's a lesson. He says yes, it's a lesson. He says no, it's a lesson. Fine. As long as you have learned, it is Swadhyaya. But if you are like, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? That self-pity is not Swadhyaya. Never, 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 never let Swadhyaya become an excuse for self-pity. Swadhyaya should never be an excuse for self-pity. Self-pity is self-pity. Do not try to dress it up and make it sound better. Self-pity is self-pity. That's what it is. And we need to get out of that well. The scriptures help. And that is why when we apply the teachings towards self-analysis, then it is Swadhyaya. But if we don't do it, it is not. And that is why Abraham Maslow, again, an amazing guy, hit this point from another angle when he said, what is necessary to change a person is to change their awareness of themselves. I think this is a very, very important statement. We are going to look at it for a few more minutes. What is necessary to change a person is to change their awareness of themselves. This is what Swadhyaya is all about. Now, if a person needs to change, that cannot happen if they don't change the awareness of themselves. If I am always focused on the external, I am not going to change because I'm going to want you to change. I don't want to change. It is only when I start to go inside and realize what is there and what needs to change, that then it can start to happen. And this is why it is so difficult. The changing, which is what Pratipaksha Bhavanam is all about. For Pratipaksha Bhavanam to occur, it is a change in perspective. We were talking of Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upekshanam, these different 4 attitudes that Patanjali has suggested we adopt in different situations, places, people, and events. All of them come from a desire to grow, a desire to change. And you say that in this situation, what is the appropriate response? What is the appropriate response in this situation? That is where you ask yourself. That is where Swadhyaya comes in. And that Swadhyaya fine-tunes your mental perception and your perspective starts to change. All of those 4 bhavanas, I was thinking about it the other day because I had a beautiful question from someone about this. If I am not wrong, I think it was from Kamala. About the question of ahimsa and karuna or compassion. And whether compassion is actually the opposite end of the spectrum to himsa. So violence on one side and ahimsa as compassion. And it made me think because if you look at ahimsa, all of these 4 attitudes that Patanjali is suggesting, that Chatur Bhavana, the 4 attitudes, which is Maitri, friendliness towards those who are at ease with themselves. Karuna, compassion towards those who are suffering. Mudita, cheerfulness towards the noble. And Upekshanam, indifference towards those who are going on the wrong path. All 4 of these are actually coming from a state of ahimsa. If you actually look, where do these 4 come from? They are all based on ahimsa. Because as long as violence is there within us, we will not be able to actually adopt these attitudes. And this is why I thought about it a lot, because I said it is so beautiful that the attitudes are talked about in one chapter, ahimsa is talked about in another chapter, but we must remember every chapter is related to the wholesome human being, the wholesome experience. So though it may be in different chapters, that is just for the sake of studying and understanding. Now, when we talk about Swadhyaya, we need to understand this is not to be a self-criticism session. This can also see the positives when they manifest. We need to watch out for the subconscious mind, which is very clever and tries to throw us off the spiritual path by hook or crook. That is why we need Vairagya, or the dispassionate non-attachment. We need to have objectivity. Because if we are not objective towards our own subjective experiences, that is a phrase that became very popular for me for a long time. We need to develop objectivity towards our own subjective experiences to know whether we are really having them or not. Otherwise, the antaraya, the obstacles to sadhana, they come in. And that is why viveka, which is discernment, vairagya, which is objectivity, they enable us to understand ourselves. But otherwise, what happens is the obstacle called Bhranti Darshana. It comes and it says, oh, I am already there. I am in Samadhi. I can see auras. I am so spiritual. And what happens is, before we know it, our sadhana is back to square one, like the game of snakes and ladders. So in Swadhyaya, one needs to be able to discern. Discernment, viveka is so important. Otherwise, the subconscious says, how do I get this person to stop? It gives you all these methods. It says, okay, you are not well today. You don't need to do your sadhana. It says, you can do it tomorrow. It is snowing today. It is too cold. It is too hot. The students went and asked the guru. They said, Swamiji, it is so hot in summer and so cold in the winter. What do we do? And the guru said, go where it is neither hot nor cold. Go where it is neither hot nor cold. And that is the place within us. You remember hot and cold, hypothalamus, appetite and satiety, hypothalamus, sympathetic, parasympathetic, hypothalamus, hypothalamus. That hypothalamus is the deep cave within yourself. And you know, the pituitary gland that hangs below the hypothalamus actually has a cave. The pituitary fossa is actually a bony cave in which the pituitary is protected. And the nerves that run around it are called the cavernous plexus, like a cavern. A cavern means a big cave. So there is an internal cave. If you want to find that cave, you don't need an externalized cave. You have a cave within you. In that cave, there is the beautiful light. That is where that Jyoti comes alive. In that cave that is within us, that cavernous plexus, those nerves, they are nerves that have a beautiful tendency that when you focus strongly enough, they actually start to sort of have electrical impulses. And actually you are generating a true light actually inside. If you were to measure it with, you know, an EEG, it would show the action potentials. It would show the electrical potentials happening by your focusing there. That is actually the power. It is amazing actually that these parts of your brain have effulgence as part of their nature. The cavernous plexus. Ishvara Pranidhana, which is the fifth of the niyamas. And what I'm trying to do in this session is first get through the base, and then we are going to go in more depth of each one. Ishvara Pranidhana is having the will to do one's best and yet have an acceptance of the higher divine will and its decisions. Many people are always going around saying, God doesn't answer my prayers. But God has actually answered no to their prayer. But because we want God to always say yes, we don't realize that no is also an answer. That is why all of us are alive, fighting and doing our best only through the divine will. This is why Swamiji, when he talked of Ishvara Pranidhana, he used to call it Atman Prasadanam. He said Ishvara Pranidhana is Atman Prasadanam. It is a blessing of the divine self that we receive when we open up to the cosmos. When you open up to the cosmos, the Atma, which is the self, gives you a prasada. Prasad means a blessing. And the prasadam is the blessing. When you go to a temple, you get prasadam. So you take some flowers and then they give you half of it as a prasadam. So you get blessed by a prasadam. For prasadam, you first need to take something there. Many people go empty-handed. Now, if you go empty-handed, you come back empty-handed, okay? You need to offer something. It could be physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. When you offer something to the divine, it comes back multifold. That coming back multifold is the prasadam that we get. And that is why the first part is we need to do our best. Then we leave the rest in the hands of the divine. The operative part, do your best. Because many are like the person who blamed God that they never won a lottery, but they didn't realize they had to at least buy the ticket in the first place. If you want to win a lottery, at least you have to buy the ticket, okay? Then God can help you. But we are always looking for God to help us when we have not tried to help ourselves. This is why the Vedic mantra that says, Ayam me hasto Bhagavan. My hands, Ayam me hasto Bhagavan. My hands, hasta. Huh? Sounds a bit like Latin and Spanish, I think. Hasta. Huh? Ayam me hasto Bhagavan means my hands are hands of the divine. My feet. Ayam me pado Bhagavan. My pada, my feet are feet of the divine. Ayam me hasto Bhagavan. Ayam me pado Bhagavan. Ayam aham brahmasmi. Ayam atma brahmam. I am the divine. My hands are the divine. My feet are the divine. My hands are the doing principle. My feet are the principle of movement. All of this is actually the divine. And when we realize that, we start to realize actually we have been given the blessing of the divine to help ourselves. A beautiful phrase comes in the Tamil culture that says, Avan arulale avantal vanangi, which means even to worship the divine, you need the blessings, the grace of the divine. Without the grace of the divine, you cannot even worship the divine. I say, I am worshiping you, so do something for me. I love the way, people go to places of worship and they negotiate with God. I've laughed at the business mentality with which people here negotiate with God. If I, get this, I will do this for you. They're telling the deity in the temple, if I get this contract, I will put 5 tube lights in your temple. Seriously, what is your contract worth? $1 million. What are the tube lights worth? $10. You think God is stupid? You're going to give $10 to God and God will give you the million because you are negotiating with God? Seriously. I'm astonished at the way people do this type of thing. Well, I must admit, when I was in medical school, I made a promise to the Ganesha in Pondicherry. The Ganesha in Pondicherry is Manakula Vinayaka. It's a very famous temple. And it has a long story that the French guy in charge here of Pondicherry got mad with the people worshipping this idol of Ganesha and kept throwing it into the ocean. And that after a week or 10 days, it would again come back to the shore. And this happened so many times that that guy finally gave up and he said, this idol has something special. And he actually paid for the temple to be built, the first temple. So they often call that Ganesha as the white man's Ganesha. He's actually given the name because the Frenchman who was in charge of Pondicherry helped sponsor the first temple. Very interesting history of Manakula Vinayaka. But I remember I had made a promise to Ganesha. I said, okay, if I do well in my exams, my final exams, I will break, 50 coconuts for you. 50 coconuts. We bang them on the floor and break them. In the temple, they have a special place where you can go and do this. And then I said, If I get this, I will do. So I ended up having to break 108 coconuts. And I tell you seriously, when you break 108 coconuts one after another, your shoulder really gets sore, okay? That was a lesson I learned. Gitan is like, Dr. Ananda, that's a good idea with coconuts. I tell you, it's quite an interesting one. You have all these coconuts that then, then offer to different people. It's part of community thing. But when I look back, I laugh at myself that, me getting a gold medal in medicine and Ganesha getting 108 coconuts, that was my bargain with him. We often have this tendency to bargain. If you do it for me, I will do it for you. Quid pro quo, they call it. And seriously, we forget that even to be alive, even to have thoughts, we need the energy from the divine. And it's so important. The focus is so important. The prayer is so important. Yes, as Ramana has said, the focus is important. The sankalpa, the intent is important. And this is where there's that constant communication with the universe. Now, Swamiji used to say that this is Atman Prasadanam, as it is the blessing of the divine self that we receive when we open up to the cosmos. And when we start to open up, this Ishvara Pranidhana, which is actually the peak of relaxation, starts to manifest. Ishvara Pranidhana is the ability to give over to the highest. It is the point where the rocket leaves the gravitational pull of the earth. It is the point where the jumper leaves the ground and leaps up, that leap of faith. It is that point where the airplane stops running on that, runway and starts to take off. It is that point is where the Ishvara Pranidhana is coming alive. It is a point where lot of Shraddha, that faith, conviction, and it comes from a very strong place of trust. I would say that Ishvara Pranidhana implies a trust that you have with the universe. It's a trust in the universe. Most of us, we don't trust the universe. We don't trust anyone. And that is why Ishvara Pranidhana is a manifestation of deep trust. I often talk about this with our animals in the ashram. Because, with animals, they don't really want to lie with their abdominal area up. Because when an animal lies with its abdomen exposed, it is the most vulnerable part of the animal. So they like to lie in a way that the spine is protecting them. So either on the side or face down. Usually they will try to curl up so that the abdominal area, which is a very sensitive area, is not exposed. But then, while our students are in their bhajan class with Devasena on Thursdays, or, in the mantra class, our dogs will come along to one of them and lie down, with all four legs up in the sky, and they want a scratch on the tummy. Anybody who has cats and dogs, you know what this is. And that is actually a moment that they have complete trust in you. Those animals are expressing to you complete trust, complete surrender, because if they didn't trust you, they would not open up that way. And that is why when we lie down in Shavasana, Shavasana is a physical expression of Ishvara Pranidhana. Now, I don't think any of you has ever heard a yoga teacher express Shavasana and Ishvara Pranidhana. Shavasana is an asana, you lie down, bas, itna hai. This is how it is taught. But you know what? The psychophysiological, spiritual aspects of asana are so deep. In Shavasana, you are lying down and you are opening up to the universe, saying, I trust in you. It is a gesture. Shavasana is a gesture. It is a mudra in that way. Though it's an asana, it becomes a mudra because it is a gesture that you are telling the universe, I trust in you completely. Just imagine the attitude that is created from Shavasana. No wonder people sleep better. No wonder the blood pressure comes down. No wonder it is an anti-stress posture. Even if they don't know what they are doing, it is happening. See, this is the beauty of the asanas, is even if you don't know what you're doing, that asana is going to give you a glimpse of that experience. As you start to know what you're doing, it's going to expand that experience. So the first part is there will be a glimpse of that experience. People will say, I feel so relaxed. They don't know why. As Henry Blofeld, the cricket commentator, when BBC did its show with us at Saiter, and what is that? The Royal Marigold Hotel show. And Henry, I never realized Henry had come. I knew some Henry had come. If I'd known it was the cricket commentator, Henry Blofeld, I would have got his autograph for sure. Because that guy was very popular in India for commenting on people's earrings all the time. He would always find someone in the stand and start a big description of the earrings. And thanks to Kalavati sharing us that video, we got to see it. And it was amazing. Henry, he said, you know, this is the first time I remember, this is the first time I have gone to sleep lying on my back. At the end of the yoga session, he actually fell asleep. He was snoring. It is quite amusing, actually. That was not part of the script. The script did not have him falling asleep. The script did not have him snoring. That was actually what happened. This guy got so relaxed that he started snoring. And when he came out, he said, that is the first time I remember. He said, I don't remember when I last went to sleep on my back. I tell you, it was amazing. He said, I don't remember when it was last I went to sleep on my back, and I've never felt as relaxed. Now imagine if one yoga session could give that guy such a relief. It is about, this is why when you are teaching yoga, we often joke about it because I think maybe Meena's voice is a good lullaby. So she puts them to sleep or something. We had to find out whether that is part of it. But you know, when you are teaching yoga, okay, and you are creating a space, a yoga studio, a yoga center, whatever you create, make sure people feel safe in that space. I think one of the biggest responsibilities as a teacher, as a therapist, when you are sharing yoga with others in a space, is to make sure they feel safe. Because when they feel safe in that space, what you have done is the Ishvara Pranidhana experience will be much easier than if somebody is lying down in Shavasana, eyes closed, and wondering what is happening in the room around them. And we have had that experience with, you know, patients who have been referred from psychiatry. The patients who come from psychiatry, initially we didn't know what was happening. And what we do at a Saiter is we take the blood pressure before and after the sessions. We take the blood pressure before and after sessions so that we know, you know, what is happening. And we found that most of the time, the person comes in with a certain blood pressure. By the end of the session, you measure it, it's 99 times it's gone down. They have relaxed with the session. We published a paper on it. We have data for, I don't know, 15, 16,000 people like that. We have to upgrade to the latest version. We had an old publication with about 2,000 values. We had to take it up. We have, I think, 15 or 16,000, I think we have now. And it's the same, always. But then there's always the person who, at the end of the relaxation, the blood pressure goes up. And you wonder what has happened. And then if you analyze it, you realize most probably that person was getting stressed out because they had the eyes closed. Because when they closed the eyes, the mind went into a hyperactive mode. What is happening? Has somebody run off with my watch? Has somebody run off with my phone? Is somebody taking a video of me that will be misused later? You know, all this, all the chitta vritti comes alive when they close the eyes. And with the patients from psychiatry, we found this happening non-stop. Every time they did the relaxation, blood pressure went up because already the mind was hyperactive. You have put it on a more hyperactive mode. So then we started devising the methodology that keep the eyes closed while doing Shavasana. So if you have somebody in such a situation, let them do the Shavasana for a few classes with the eyes open. Let them learn that this is a safe place. Let them feel at home. And then you don't have to tell them. They will start closing their eyes on their own. And this is something that happens. I think I saw a comment come up there. And yes, with the children with special needs also. Because they don't like to close the eyes. Because again, it's the same thing. It is that unsafe feeling. We need to understand that the moment you close your eyes, keeping your eyes open is one of the most primitive responses to being alive. The moment you close your eyes, you are at risk of something eating you. That is why no animal wants to close its eyes if it is not in a safe place. There are some animals who sleep with eyes open even. It's quite interesting when you look at the animal kingdom and what a variety we have. And this is why Ishvara Pranidhana is being manifest when you lie down in Shavasana. You are saying, I am opening up to the universe. Swamiji's concept of, letting down, letting in, giving over, giving in, all those four-pronged relaxation that I talked about some days ago. All of that is happening because it's part of Ishvara Pranidhana, giving over. Now, one of the issues with the word Ishvara is the people who have been teaching yoga in India have often come from a religious background. Now, when you come from a religious background and you hear the word Ishvara, you only think of a personified form of God. So if it was somebody who believed in Shiva, Ishvara is Shiva, so you are surrendering to Shiva. If it was somebody who was a Krishna Bhakta, you are surrendering to Krishna. If it was Vaishnava, it is Vishnu. If it is Devi, it is Shakti. So there was always this concept of God being brought in. Now, if you look at Patanjali, he is actually close to being what I would call an atheist in some ways. Patanjali is quite an atheist in that way. He and Buddha actually go together quite well. It's not a personified, when he says Ishvara, it's not a personified form of God. That is why it's not really God when you think about Ishvara, which is where I think a word like divine is a safer word to use rather than God. Which is why I like to say Ishvara Pranidhana is the giving over to the higher universal divinity, to the higher universe. But if people have an issue with God, blah, 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 even divine, I remember Swamiji and Amma in all the letters they used to write to people, it would start divine self. This was the way it used to come, divine self. And my letters Amma used to write when I was in school were divine bug, the Ananda bug, the divine bug. I shared a beautiful video of a film made in the 80s. I must have been 9 or 10, not more than that, of Swamiji and me on the beach. We are doing our Surya Prana Mudra. And it's a very beautiful video. And Ammaji doing the Surya Namaskar on the beach. It's an amazing antique video. I shared it with all of you, I think, this morning or yesterday. Please have a look at it. It's by one of India's most famous filmmakers, Rajiv Mehrotra, who is currently like the personal assistant to the Dalai Lama. And Rajiv and his wife, Meenakshi, they visited us last year, and it was nice to reconnect. This was in the 80s, and so beautiful, beautiful. The concept of mudras within the culture, and you start to realize how the culture had it in so many ways. When we think about Ishvara, it is more an agnostic, atheist to some extent type of perspective Patanjali has. It's not God as such. Ishvara is more about energy. Ishvara is about consciousness. And that is why what we are doing in Ishvara Pranidhana is not, oh, you're bowing down to God. Because then again, people get stuck in religion. Because Religion has become, this is my God, you bow down to it, and you become part of my flock. You know, it's this power thing that has come in. Ishvara Pranidhana has none of that. It's not bowing down to God. It is the ability of us, you can think of it as the drop becoming the ocean. The drop expanding into the ocean. That is what Ishvara Pranidhana is type of. The drop is going back into the ocean. You know, there's a drop, imagine the ocean, and the drop's going back in. The wave has brought the drop out. It has its own identity, and then it's going back. As the drop is going back, the drop going back to the ocean, that sense of the drop merging into the ocean, that is what Ishvara Pranidhana is. It is the capacity of us to move from me, I, to we. It is the capacity to move from me to us, and to realize we are a component of the whole. It is like, you know, people have difficulty with this, and I understand why, because we are so stuck with being who we are and this fat, bloated ego that we have. As I was telling Amma, you know, I have updated the definition of human being from featherless biped to flat-nailed featherless biped to now a thick-skulled, flat-nailed featherless biped. I just had someone shared a video of people in America and being asked by people, do you want a mask? And the responses were so astonishing. I was like, I just can't believe, I just can't believe where we are as a human race with all the education, with all the information out there, that we just cannot do something as simple as in public wear a mask. We are not telling people to wear it at home, okay? We are just saying in public, if you wear it, you are protecting yourself and others. That's all. When you're at home, take it off. No one is telling you to go to sleep at night with a mask on. And I don't know, this whole thing, there was a beautiful cartoon about this with, you know, someone with bees, and they had a beehive and these people with, you know, all the safety apparatus, and there's a guy getting stung. And the one guy says, you know, I offered him the safety apparatus, and he says it infringes on his fundamental rights. And the guy is getting stung by the bees. And I don't know what it will take for us human beings. Now, I understand no one trusts the government anymore. I also don't trust the government, because they are all the most devious maniacs that you can think of are in power. I accept that. I go along with many of these conspiracy ideas. Swamiji had dime a dozen of them. So I enjoy conspiracy theories because they're just marvelous. You just love them because they're just so marvelous. But then you have to understand there is something called reality. People are dying. There is something called, you know, doing the right thing at the right point. And this is where the sense of I am me. Now imagine what happens. What happens if your cells start to do that? Imagine each one of your cells said, I am me, and I'm not going to do what I am to do because it's my fundamental right. And so your liver cell says, I will work when I want to work. Your kidney cell says, I don't like being a kidney cell, I'm going to be a neuron today. Your lung cells say, we are on a vacation to go down and visit the rectum. Smells better down there. Imagine your cells started doing that. Do you think you could be healthy? No way. No way. Thankfully, each cell is fulfilling its dharma. Each cell is doing what it is supposed to do, being what it is supposed to be. Thankfully, your cells have that common sense, which we, having trillions of cells, seem to lack. I don't know what happens. But one thing I've seen, whenever you get intelligent people into a group, their level of intelligence usually sinks a couple of inches lower. It sort of, it seems to happen. You get 10 intelligent people in a group and suddenly you wonder where all the intelligence has gone. And this is one of the issues I have with committees, because you have all these intelligent people and they end up making such stupid decisions. And you're like, how can it happen? And it's like they get dragged down. But let's come back to it. When we are talking about the individual, it is like each cell is doing its Ishvara Pranidhana when it is saying, I am part of this whole person and I will do what I need to do so the wholesomeness can manifest. That is what each cell is doing, its own Ishvara Pranidhana, when it is not thinking of what's in it for me, but thinking of the bigger we. Now a cell can do it. When your cells are doing it, you are healthy. If we as an individual in this universe can start doing it, we would have a healthy society, a healthy planet, healthy humanity, a healthy universe. I just love this. I just love this concept of lowering, you know, seriously. The internet, especially social media, has become one of those tools that anybody can say anything they want because they think that nobody is there. Now, things that you would not say to a person's face, you put in a comment on Facebook and Twitter and others because you think there is a distance. And I think people have lost all sense of, all common sense. Common sense has already died, but still, you know, I keep on hoping it can be resuscitated. But sharing such a video, being judged, a person criticizing that as being judgmental and fear-based is actually doing the very thing that they are claiming you are doing in being judgmental about that. Okay, that's actually what it is. It's being judgmental about being judgmental. And now by me saying something about it, I am being judgmental about the judgmental being judgmental of the judgmental. And that is why sometimes silence is golden. But I don't know, it's a weird world where, you know, you share the most inane things and people are happy about it. You share something that is thought-provoking and then it will be called being judgmental. And people are always jumping on this judgmental part. So I'm not going to go much on that, but this whole judgmental frame, I feel, is itself flawed, because what they are doing is they are actually judging others as being judgmental. Now, my thing is that if you feel somebody is being judgmental, just keep quiet and go on. That is the simplest way about dealing with it. And then people say, oh, yoga is non-judgmental. I say, yes, yoga is non-judgmental, but yoga has a great amount of discernment because it has vairagya. So you have to make a choice. To make a choice, you have to compare things, which means there is an element of being judgmental in making a choice, but you are not condemning anything. You are not victimizing anything. And so that is why this whole concept of, oh, yoga is non-judgmental. Yoga is very judgmental about you making the right choice. So there is, you are choosing, do you want to go the pleasant path or the noble path? Yes, that is, you could call it being judgmental or you could call it choice. It depends on how you phrase it. But what we mean by being non-judgmental is, we are not going around trying to put violence on others. We are not condemning others. We are not trying to, you know, put others down. That is not there in yoga, for sure. But making a choice is very much part and parcel of yoga. The higher yoga, buddhi yoga. Buddhi yoga, the buddhi. That buddhi is having prefrontal cortex is where discernment comes, the power of choice comes. And when you do it in a non-violent way, when you do it in a compassionate way, and when you do it to help people understand what's happening in the world, I think that is actually a very good thing to do. Let's come back on to where we were with our Ishvara Pranidhana. For me, Ishvara Pranidhana is such a beautiful niyama. In fact, tomorrow when we go into some more details on this, we will look even deeper that actually Ishvara Pranidhana is the shortest of the shortcuts to Samadhi. It's a very beautiful concept. And this paragraph, I think, talks about it. Can you see my screen? It's there. Okay. The term samadhi may be used to refer to a state of total absorption or to a state where we have elevated ourselves to become sama, equal to the adi, the highest divine. It is the eighth anga of Ashtanga. Hence, it is given the mental idea that you can get to samadhi after completing the other 7. This is just a mental idea that is inherent. It also gives us a shorter route to the same destination by giving us Kriya Yoga, which has Tapas Swadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhana. Because Patanjali tells us that Kriya Yoga is there to reduce the kleshas, about which we'll talk tomorrow. Because without talking of kleshas, you can never end a discussion on the Yama Niyama. Klesha Tanukaranartascha, to reduce the impact of the kleshas, and Samadhi Bhavanataha. For Samadhi, the attitude of Samadhi to flourish and to attenuate the kleshas. That is the purpose of Patanjali's Kriya Yoga. So, Patanjali is saying, you can have Yama Niyama, Asana Pranayama, Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi, or you can have Tapas Swadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhana, Presto Samadhi, or then he says, through Ishvara Pranidhana alone, you can also get to Samadhi. So Ishvara Pranidhana, to me, is the shortest of the shortcut. The shortest of the short routes to Samadhi is that one is blessed with Samadhi when one perfects Ishvara Pranidhana, the last of the Niyama. So everybody's like, wow, okay, I'll just go to Ishvara Pranidhana. I don't have to do everything else. It's that one stop to Samadhi, or one flight to Samadhi, or whatever you want to call it. Well, often the shortest of shortcuts is the toughest of the ones. I always think of the ashram in Altare, Savona, Italy, our Gitananda ashram, and those who watched the pre-final episode of Divya's Global Voices. I'm trying to convince her to do another series with something like that, because it was just so beautiful to have all our Gitananda family, sort of coming in different ways. But the people in the Gitananda ashram at Altare, they're on top of a mountain. It's in the Italian Alps, the base of the Italian Alps. So they are on top of a mountain, which is considered Altare, which is the town, the locality they are in. So the water pipe from the ashram to get the water is actually in Altare, which is the town at the bottom of the mountain. So you have the steep climb and you can get there, okay? But then if I take a car and I want to go to Altare, it takes me 6 kilometers of driving around the mountain before I can get to Altare. So get in a car, you have a nice journey, you get to Altare 6 kilometers, but it's about, it must be less than a 1 kilometer journey, but up a very, very steep hill if you want to go up this way. So yes, this is the shortcut, but are you capable? Is your heart ready to have that exercise? Are your muscles up to it? Well, that is what we have to look. Same thing here with Ishvara Pranidhana. And Ishvara Pranidhana to me is actually the path of Bhakti Yoga. When we talk of yoga, we say we have the Raja Yoga path. There are at least 40 versions, and I love Georg Feuerstein and his concept of the 40 margas. He has given 40 different paths of yoga. And I remember asking him permission long, long ago and putting it in my theory book, where I talk of the 40 different paths of yoga, of which the 4, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Raja Yoga, and Karma Yoga, are sort of brought out based on sort of the Bhagavad Gita teachings. And when we talk about Bhakti Yoga, for me, Ishvara Pranidhana and Bhakti Yoga, they really go together. Because Bhakti is the ability to completely give over to something higher. And what I like to tell people is, we all know that we are not everything. There is something more than us. There is something bigger than us, something greater than us. When you can connect to that, that is where Bhakti comes alive. Bhakti is the connection you have with something greater than you. Call it whatever you want. Call it God, call it Rama, Krishna, Jesus, Allah, Buddha. That's your business, what you call it. But there is something bigger to which you connect. That connection is very important in yoga. And how do you get that connection? By a complete trust and surrender, giving over to that which you feel is the greater. That is the peak of Bhakti Yoga. Ishvara Pranidhana has that same element. And that is why often people think Bhakti Yoga is just singing songs, sitting and doing puja. That is one element of it. That is like asana, pranayama in the general part of yoga. But Bhakti is actually the ability to witness the divine in everything and everything in the divine. It is a state of non-duality, non-divisiveness, a unitive state where you are able to perceive the divine in everything and everything in the divine. There's no duality at all. You don't say that cats go to heaven but not dogs. You don't say that these type of people will be blessed but not those people. You have no divisiveness. There is no differentiation. There is no discrimination. There is only oneness. That is the state of bhakti. And this is why it is a state where you and the cosmos are one. That is why it is samadhi. Samadhi is a state of oneness with the highest. And in bhakti yoga, when you, that drop, have merged into the ocean, there is just the ocean. And that is why the path of bhakti, though Patanjali doesn't mention it, Patanjali doesn't directly say this is bhakti yoga. But when we start to look at it in detail, we realize Ishvara Pranidhana is the equivalent of what would be bhakti yoga. In that way, Swadhyaya, the whole Yama Niyama, of course, is a lot of Jnana yoga in that way. Because there's a lot of thought process and self-questioning that comes in. Swadhyaya is a very key element there. Swadhyaya as Jnana yoga and Tapa as, I would say, Karma yoga. For me, Tapa is Karma yoga. The Karma yoga sadhana is Tapa. The Jnana yoga sadhana is Swadhyaya. The Bhakti yoga sadhana is Ishvara Pranidhana. That is why these three, though they are part of the 5 niyamas, though they are part of the first 2 angas, they are in their own self unique parts of yoga. And that is why when we realize that our prarthana, there is a beautiful word in Sanskrit, prarthana and sankalpa. Prarthana is often translated as a prayer. But what prarthana actually means is a focus. It is the concept of focusing your will. Now think about this. You have your will and you are focusing your will in one direction. That is actually what prarthana is. You can say that's what prayer is also. I'm just trying to give you a little bigger picture, because the moment we say prarthana is prayer, people have got stuck again in religion. So I'm trying to just sort of give us that additional step out of it. Your focused communication is prarthana. What is sankalpa? It is the focused intent. It is an affirmation that has been a focused intent. You are using your what is called Ichcha Shakti. The power of intent is being focused in a sankalpa. A kalpa actually means like vikalpa and kalpa. These are your, it's like imagination, hallucination, thought patterns, something that is more at a psychic level, not so connected to the physical. That is what kalpa means. Sun refers to the sat. Actually, it is sat and kalpa coming together. They change into sankalpa. Sat means the highest reality. So your mental projection that is directed towards the highest reality. Now that is a very tough one to take in. People say, make a sankalpa, which basically means a wish. I say it's not just a wish. Because you saying, may I get a new car by the end of the year? It is not a sankalpa actually, okay? So sankalpa is where you are using the capacity to mentally project a thought towards a highest reality. When you project a thought, what is a thought? It is a mental projection. And you are directing it towards the highest reality. It is a sankalpa. So the prarthana is a focus and sankalpa is a projection. And this can be done in 3 ways. One is likita, which means you can write it out. People write out their prayers, they write out their wishes, they write out their sankalpa. Vachika is where it is expressed in the voice. And manasika is where it is in the mind. The most subtle one is, of course, in the mind. When you write it out, you have brought it down to the grossest level of communication. The written form of communication is the grossest. The spoken is a bit more subtle. Mental communication is the most pure and it's at the highest level of sort of subtlety. The danger with manasika is that people think they're doing it, but nobody can correct you because nobody knows what's in your head. So that is why normally with prarthana and sankalpa, at least if you say it out loud, somebody can say, well, you should say it this way, or that is the way it is to be written or said. So the written form of a prarthana and sankalpa, the spoken form of a prarthana and sankalpa enables you to make any necessary corrections that are required. But then once you are doing it correctly, once it is being done in the way it is to be done, doing it mentally is the highest level of power. The highest power is when it is done mentally. Same thing with mantra japa also. Now what is happening is that many people are sitting, writing, saying or thinking the prayers, but they forget to live the dharma. They are not doing what they are to do. And they're always praying for something else. Now, I think what we need to realize is no amount of prayer will help you if you are doing it at the cost of your dharma. Your dharma comes first. Krishna is very clear in the Bhagavad Gita. Swadharma is the highest responsibility. So, you have people who are in families and, the wife and the kid are, struggling. The kid is not going to bed and the wife is crying about it. And this guy is sitting there saying, I'm going to do my meditative session right now. And that is my dharma is to do my yoga practice. I think at that time, you helping your wife and getting that kid to sleep is a more important meditation that day than you sitting on your mat. And this is just where Swamiji comes in, because Swamiji was a very down-to-earth, practical yogi. Swamiji was like, you helping out your parents may be your sadhana. You helping out your child may be your sadhana. And then there will be a time where the sadhana can be in other forms also. Each part of our life, our sadhana is different. Motherhood is a sadhana. Grandmotherhood is a sadhana. Fatherhood can be a sadhana. All hoods are sadhanas. Hood. Be careful of the hoods. Guruhood, that's another sadhana. I always laugh when we talk of guru hoods because there are a lot of hoods in the form of gurus these days. Guruhood. You have to be careful of that one. See, your life is your sadhana. So, Swadharma is there. Now, your work becomes your workship. Worship is your workship. Through your work, you are worshipping. That is a very beautiful concept that comes. Your work becomes your form of worship. And that is actually where Karmasu Kaushalam comes in. Your every action becomes an action that is done with devotion for the highest. It's a very beautiful concept because people often ask me, Dr. Ananda, do you sit and meditate? I'm like, I don't have to sit and meditate separately because my work becomes my meditation. When I'm teaching, it's a meditative experience for me. Teaching is a meditative experience. Singing is a meditative experience. Helping another human being is a meditative experience. Now, it is nice when you have time, you sit down and try to do your own sadhana. That's different. But this is also part of the sadhana. And that is why sometimes the most important prayer may be the prayer you do by helping others, by serving others. Because in the service of others, you're actually serving the divine. Because who is the divine? The divine comes in every form. As I said, the highest bhakti is not just the ability to see the divinity in one form, but the willingness and ability to see it in all forms. That is why when you start to see the divine in everyone, through serving everyone, you are serving the divine. I think this is something that we often lose track. We often lose track of this because what happens is that often we are talking in India. What we do is that when somebody has died, we celebrate the day they have died by having certain rituals done, and then we feed a few people, spend a lot of money on that, and we say, yes, now the soul is very happy because you have remembered that soul and you have done the rituals and all, and you spend a lot of money. Now, I know some people who take another track and they say, rather than doing it that way, for that same money, I can go and feed 100 people who have not had a meal. Now, by feeding those 100 people, you are getting that same punya, you are getting that same merit, you are getting the same blessing that you would have got by doing the other way. Now, some people need to do that ritual. That is fine. That is the way they have chosen. But if you can also see, by helping other people, you are also serving that same departed soul that you want to propitiate. When you are serving other people, you are serving the divine. The divine is not separate than the manifest world. When you feed a hungry dog, it is like feeding the divine. There are so many stories in Indian culture, so many stories where, there are people who, are very devout to the divine, and then these people, they're always going and putting a lot of food for the statue and doing all the rituals and all. And then one night they get a dream. This is usually whenever we want to give a message, we give it in a dream. This is the easiest way because nobody knows what happened. So it's easiest to make up a story that way. So normally in a dream, that divine aspect will come. It may be Shiva, it may be Vishnu, somebody, and will ask this person, I was so hungry today, you didn't feed me. And then this person gets up and is like thinking, I took all the food, I did it and all. And then they remember that when they were coming out of that temple with the food that had been blessed, there were two hungry people who said, can I have some food? And this person said, no, that food is only for God, not for you, and took it home. You always have stories like this, that person who was hungry at that time was actually the divine manifesting in human form, saying, can I be fed? But because you didn't see the divine in that form, you were not able to recognize the divine. There's a story of Tulasidas, who writes the Hindi Ramayana. And Tulasidas, at the end of his life, he was sitting at the Varanasi at the Ganges, Ganga, and he used to be reciting this Rama Charitamanas and this beautiful Ramayana in Hindi, for which he was, of course, criticized by many that it shouldn't be in the local language, it had to only be in Sanskrit. He was doing it in Hindi. He used to see an old man sitting in the back of the hall. And one day he suddenly realized it was Lord Hanuman. Because wherever the name of Rama is chanted, it is said Lord Hanuman will be there. Anjaneya Swami will be there. And so he goes and catches hold of Anjaneya Swami, this old man. He says, please give me darshan of Lord Rama. I want to witness Lord Rama, my divine. And so Hanuman says, okay, let go of me. He says, tomorrow at 4 p.m. at the bank of the Ganga, where you sit every day, you will see Lord Rama. And so he's very happy. So the next day, Tulasidas is sitting there, and he's a saint. So he's taking the holy vermilion and putting it on whoever comes by and is blessing them. And two young men come in and they say, please bless us. He puts it for both of them and they go on. And the day goes and he's like, Rama didn't come, Rama didn't come. That evening he's giving his discourse and again he says, Hanuman. At the end of it, he goes to Hanuman and he said, you said Rama will come. He didn't come. He says, Tulasidas, Rama came and you just put the vermilion on his forehead and sent him off because you didn't recognize him. Then the next day, Rama and Lakshmana come again. Rama and Lakshmana come in human form and he doesn't recognize because he was anticipating Lord Rama decked up in all, how you expect the personification of Rama to be. We are always expecting that the divine to come down looking like a pin-up poster that we have in all religions. We expect that pin-up poster. God is not a pin-up poster, okay? God is energy. The divine is energy. It will come through different forms. And the different forms may be people you love, people you don't love, people who look nice, people who don't look nice, people who smell nice, people who don't smell nice. Can you see the divine in everything and everyone? And in the divine you see everything? That is bhakti. That is Ishvara Pranidhana. And it is such a beautiful, beautiful state which that comes. I have a question here from Pragya. What is the difference between terms Kundalini, Jagran and Samadhi and Moksha? Kundalini Jagran basically means the arousal of the Kundalini, which is an energy experience. The Kundalini experience is an energy experience which could be equated to one of the types of Samadhi experience, but it is still not Kaivalya or Moksha. Moksha, Mukti, Nirvana, Kaivalya are synonyms for the stage where there is only one, there is no more duality. Total liberation is Kaivalya in the Yoga and Sankhya system. It is called Moksha and Mukti in the Vedantic system. It is called Nirvana in the Buddhist system. They are all one and the same. When we use the term Samadhi, people often use Samadhi as an equivalent of Kaivalya. So they say, oh, that usually then we prefix it by saying Maha Samadhi. That is one way to get out of this confusion. It is like the Maha Prana and then the Prana in you. It's another way because terms are the same. But in Patanjali's system, Samadhi is one of the yoga angas. It is not yet Kaivalya. So in Patanjali system, the term Samadhi is one of the angas. It is not Kaivalya. But often in common parlance, even Swamiji in his teachings used to talk about Samadhi and Kaivalya often in a synonymous manner. But actually, if I were to be very correct here, Samadhi is an anga, it is a state of absorption, and the highest of the Samadhis, you could say, is Kaivalya. That is how I would give it. That if you think of Samadhi as a spectrum, the highest point on that spectrum is Kaivalya Samadhi. Okay, I'm mixing terms here. The lowest Samadhi would be what Patanjali calls Vitarka Samadhi, Savitarka Samadhi, which is by contemplating gross objects. You contemplate a gross object, you become one with that object. That is the lowest form of Samadhi. But then you can contemplate subtler objects. Then you go into the states where there's no more contemplation. It is just happening, the nirbija. Then you have got everything ready. All the kleshas, all the gunas are going down. Then Dharma Mega Samadhi, that highest Samadhi, the rain cloud of virtue. And then everything, all the mala, all that is not you is washed away. And oneness alone shines. Nothing else remains. So that is Kaivalya there. So the Kundalini experience is the closest it would be is a type of Samadhi experience is how I would state it. It is an energy experience where you actually sort of become energy. It is like where mass becomes energy. Einstein's E is equal to mc square. Okay, E is equal to mc square. What is energy? Mass speeded up to the square of the speed of light. In the yoga sadhana, the speed of light is replaced by the speed of mind. The mind becomes your accelerator that accelerates the physical until it reaches the energy level. And when we work with the chakras, the energy that is there, Swamiji used to say, all energies are bipolar. The only unipolar energy is the Kundalini. A statement he often made. The Kundalini is an energy that just goes up, that's all. It doesn't go up and come down. It just goes up. It is a unipolar energy. All other energies in the universe are bipolar. That was a statement he used to often make in that regard. And one of the days I will come to having these sessions on the chakras. I'm just a bit scared because most people have such fantasies about the chakras and Kundalini and all that I'm usually scared to go on to these fantasy trips with people. Because Swamiji was a very pragmatic, down-to-earth guru. And as his son, as his student, I think I've imbibed more of his pragmatic, common sense approach, where we are not trying to hit you with peacock feathers, though Shobana has a lot of peacock feathers at her ashram. We are not trying to hit you with peacock feathers to get your Kundalini moving. None of that we are doing. So it will be there for the sake of understanding, because all of these things are as real as everything else. I am seeing you there, you are seeing me here, but we are not actually seeing each other. This is an amazing experience of seeing someone, but you are actually not seeing them. What is happening is an image is being captured, the voice is being captured, converted into a form of energy. It is transmitted, I am receiving the energy, and my system here is converting that energy back into images. It is like mass is becoming energy, and then energy is becoming mass. I'm just giving you a very simplistic example, but this is what we are working with. You are there, yes, mass is there. It is being captured and transmitted to me through a form of energy. That energy at my end is becoming a form that I can perceive as mass. I am mass here. You are perceiving me. In between, what is happening? Mass becoming energy, energy becoming mass. And that is why the power of the mind is the greatest power we have been blessed with. And if we work with it properly, well, miracles can definitely occur. I'm going to stop here today. Tomorrow we are going to go in depth how Patanjali, for each of these niyamas, what I wanted to do today was get through the 5 niyamas. Then tomorrow, each one, how Patanjali has expanded them, the concept of where they come in for the Kriya Yoga, and how actually the Yama Niyama, the Kriya Yoga and the Kleshas, you start to find how this interaction occurs, an interaction that is enabling us to get rid of all the hang-ups we have, all the blocks we have, all the distorters of our perspectives. So have a nice day today, and tomorrow, Saturday, we'll meet up. And thank you for making this happen. Wonderful opportunity for me to have my own dhyanam through such sessions. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you. Have a nice time. And in about 1 hour, Divya and I will be singing and playing for our Thursday evening sessions. So see you there also on Facebook.